Hey guys, my name is Wildkard and welcome back to my channel. First up, I've been a bit busy last couple of days making a top 10 video for the British and Irish Lions tour. It's a bit of a funny video with a top 10 shocking moments from the history of the tour. So feel free to check that out. That is why this news video is a day delayed. But yeah, hopefully you go check it out and have a laugh and yeah, enjoy. Anyway, let's get on with the actual news. First up, this has been a quite busy week this week. The week started with Australia versus France. Last week on Wednesday, there was 2 games played between Australia and France. France beat Australia in the first test with a very narrow margin of 2 points. Able to score that penalty in the last dying second to beat Australia, and yeah, and it was quite impressive going into this match, as France lost by 2 points in the first match almost 2 weeks ago. So they were able to level the series, and going into Saturday a few days ago, the Australians and France played again for the third test, and Australia were narrowly able to edge out a win over the French team. And the game was not only very entertaining, but it was very controversial, as Marika Koroibete was red carded about 4 minutes into the first half. So Australia had to play pretty much the entire game with 14 players and did really well to hold on. So a couple little controversies out of this incident. World Rugby reviewed the red card decision, and they actually reversed it. So Marika is not going to get match banned for the red card. And one of the things that kind of led to the red card decision was the French number 8. Let me see if we got his name here. I'm really not good at pronouncing French names or any names in that incident. Anyway, the French number 8, he took like a dive after getting hit. It was really like bad the way he did it as well. Like he got hit and he was like perfectly fine. He like passes the ball away or whatever, and then he suddenly realized, oh, I got hit in the face. He like, you know, slaps his own face with his hand really hard, and he's like screaming, and then he face plants himself onto the ground. Like, it was comical. He literally went like this and face planted himself like a comic, like a tree falling over. It was comedic to watch, all right? Despite his poor acting, Koroibete was still red carded for making contact with his head. And yeah, it was pretty abhorrent, and people thought that was really bad. Despite that, the Wallabies was still able to win. Some good news out of that one. The viewership has increased to almost 1,952,000 in the final stages, with an average 691,000 across the for the entire duration of the test match. And yeah, this is the most watched program outside of the news on Saturday, so that is very good. And that does not include Stan Sport and other channels or like the streaming platforms. So it could have been even more people watching this. Yeah, very good for Australian rugby. A lot of youngsters coming up. We really needed this kind of injection of interest in the sport for Australia to potentially make a bit of a comeback. Anyway, another news from the Lions tour. The Lions tour Lions play Stormers on the weekend, and there was a couple big changes to the Stormers game on the weekend. Marcus Smith stepped in at the 10 position due to just niggling injuries. Owen Farrell is technically has like a abdominal injury, but he's not really like, they're just like nursing him. So, and Dan Biggar has an injury as well, and Finn Russell has an Achilles injury. So the players were so Marcus Smith was called up to play the Stormers, and Marcus Smith had a pretty stellar performance in his club season leading into 2 tests for the English in literally 2 weeks before being called up, playing against America and Canada. And then he was called up to play the Stormers, and he played quite well for his debut. As you can see, his ratings is quite high. He set up a couple of really nice tries, including almost scoring a try for himself. Perfect kicking. So very, very promising young man coming into the Lions tour. And also in the Stormers game, we saw the return of the captain, Alan Wynne-Jones. This was quite a spectacular return for him. He was back in the squad after only 18 days on Wednesday, and then he was put into the reserves for the Stormers game after 21 days of a dislocated shoulder. Someone check to make sure that he's not a cyborg, please. Because, he looked, had a very close look when he was playing the Stormers. I couldn't really tell that he was hesitant or anything with his shoulder when it comes to making tackles or anything, but it was really hard to kind of like see. It did look like maybe he is nursing it a little bit. He was maybe a little bit rusty as one of the lineouts, like literally the first lineout he was set to catch. The ball went over the top of him, but it could be the thrower's issue as well, not just his issues. He kind of like missed the catch there. But yeah, great news for all the Lions fans, all the Welsh fans who really wanted to see the captain back. And it's very, very beautiful to see. Another big news out of South Africa. So Rassie Erasmus has been asking for a 5th test against the Lions as the Georgian game was cancelled. So Rassie was asking for a second Springbok 8 versus the Lions game last weekend, and cancelled the Stormers game. But the Warren Gatland was like, nah, we're not going to do that. But yeah, I think Gatland don't want to reveal too much to Rassie, as we saw in the first test, the first Springboks A game, where they pretty much reviewed nothing. They took quick taps out of penalties. And same was this game. So that's probably the reason Gatland didn't want to play a second Springbok A. So the Rassie really did need another game for the Springboks just to get his team up to scratch and just to finalize the last few positions on the bench spots for the first test series. Just a little bit more data for him. And sure enough, he got his wish against the Bulls on Saturday, and it was a shocking performance by the Springbok A. They had a pretty good start in the first half, 2 converted tries, leading at halftime 14 points to 0, and then allowing the Bulls to make a comeback, 17 points to 14 in the second half. So it was largely the Springboks like B or C team. So it was like the reserves of the reserves coming on for this game. So it was still, if you represented the Springboks, you're still supposed to be better than a Bulls team that has been stripped for the Springboks lineup, right? You're still supposed to be better than that. So it was pretty big upset, despite the fact that it was a C team. The Rassie looked really happy after the game. He was smiling. Partially because there was quite a big moment for the Bulls players to beat the Springbok Ace, and also he obviously got what he was looking for to finalize the last few spots for the starting test matches for the Lions tour. So yeah, pretty big news there. And the Lions team for the first test, Lions tour for the first test, Springboks team has been announced. Funny thing, the Springboks has announced their team almost like 20 hours now. It's like they've announced the team quite a bit ahead of Warren Gatland's. As the recording of this video, so yeah, the team was announced when this time I had about 4 days left. So it's been about 10 to 12 hours, since the team has been announced for the Springboks. Yet Warren Gatland has still not announced his British and Irish Lions team. There's 11 World Cup finalists starting in the team. The entire backline, I think, is exactly the same from the Rugby World Cup. a few changes in the forwards, with the front rowers being the biggest question mark for me, as seemingly the starting front rows for the Springboks is on the bench, and the bench front rowers is starting for the Springboks, and that could be quite big, as one of the front rowers, I think it's Nish, his name was, and Nayaka, Nish and Nayaka. Nayaka, from my personal memory, in recent times, he played against the Georgians, and he played for the Springbok A. Nish and Nayaka. I do think that these two guys could be a struggle against British and Irish Lions, as I remember Nayaka were penalised against Georgia, and I don't think either players had a clean game against the Lions in the Springbok A game. So yeah, the front rower could be an issue for the first half, and when the reserves comes on, which is the more of the starting, which were the players that started or actually they're probably on reserves. But anyway, the props on the bench are much stronger. Let me see if I can get the names. Malherbe, is how to pronounce his name? And I think the other guy is the redhead guy. What's his name? His name's slipping my mind. What's his name? Do they have the list down there? No. But yeah, the reserve props seems a lot stronger than the starting props. So, and the thing that I think this could be an issue here is that Warren Gallen hasn't announced his team, so he could potentially look at the list and go, "Hey, you have your starting props on the bench. I'm gonna put I make adjustments for that." So so Warren Gallen might put his starting props on the bench now as well, to make sure that he doesn't get dominated in the second half by Malherbe and what's this other guy's name? God. I know. Yeah, so basically you just want to make sure that doesn't happen in the second half. You can make adjustments accordingly, because he hasn't released the squads yet. So he could technically still make changes as I'm making this video right now to adjust for the Springboks front row lineup. So yeah, very interesting. I will have a video out when the full team is announced for both teams to look at the comparison of the lineups. So another thing, the test series are now going to be all played in Cape Town. The altitude test in Johannesburg has been cancelled. So now all the tests will be played in sea levels. This will be, due to what's been happening, I'm not even sure if the Springboks have an advantage if they were to play in altitude. It's not like in previous tours where they were able to just live in altitude mostly. Most of them are still recovering from illness, and a lot of them are, I don't think many of them have been training altitude, to be honest. So I don't even think that's going to be like a big advantage anymore for the Springboks. So moving all three tests to sea level for safety reasons is reasonable, and I don't think that will play into advantage for either teams from the looks of it. And finally, a bit of bad news from South Africa. The Georgian head coach, one of the Georgians coach, is in severe conditions on ventilators. After, getting, hopefully he recovers soon. Pretty sad. And let's have a look at some other stuff from the Southern Hemisphere. So Quade Cooper, this is a little bit, a bit close to my heart, I guess. You can say that. He was denied Australian citizenship for, how many times is it? Multiple times now from his tweet. Apparently the reason was that he's not engaging in activity benefit to Australia. Not provided enough evidence. This is a really I'm not sure what is going on here, the exact details, but Quade Cooper has been like I've heard about him and known him when he was in high school. He was a star before he was even out of school. He went to Anglican Church Grammar in Brisbane, and everybody knew him. Everybody knows he was going to be the next big thing before he was even, made his Super Rugby debut. And sure enough, as soon as he finished school, he was in Super Rugby. He won Super Rugby for the Reds in 2011, played for the Wallabies. I thought this guy would be, sure enough, contributed significantly to the Australian rugby. And yeah, I don't know, but that's just some of the things. Due to the red card, as we saw with Koroibete, how easily it is for players to just get one these days, how likely a red card to occur. The All Blacks has been training with 14 players. Apparently, Fozzie put off Brodie Retallick, out of all people. I guess he's predicting who could potentially be red carded during training session, apparently. So train with 14 players, and it's something that was kind of interesting, I thought. And and then the more news from the All Blacks camp, TJ Perenara is stepped in for the All Blacks camp, preparing for the Bledisloe Cup series. There's been quite a bit of talks about him being part of the team in the All Blacks, due to the fact that he's been in Japan, and a lot of people thought that Finlay Christie probably deserved the spot for playing domestically and earned his shot, essentially. But TJ Perenara, man, he is probably the second best in the world. The only reason he's not starting is Aaron Smith. He's been living Aaron Smith's shadow for his entire career. And he's in no way, shape, or form like a reserve, level fly half. If he's any other country, he will be a starting starting halfback, right? So he's definitely got the skills, but I can see why Fozzie wants to go for the safe option, especially when a big test matches like, the Bledisloe Cup and Rugby Championship. You don't want to put someone that's like a rookie onto the field and, leaving a big question mark for that sort of situations. But yeah, there was been a lot of discussions about Perenara in New Zealand, and also more players taking a sabbatical. Patrick Tuipulotu played really, really well for the Blues. He's probably one of the outstanding players from the Super Rugby, and he's taking a sabbatical in Japan, like his friends, like Bowden and all the other players has done. Like TJ Perenara technically didn't take a sabbatical, but TJ Perenara went to Japan after his contract expired, and now he's re-signed. So TJ Perenara is not exactly the same, but Tuipulotu, he's still contracted with the Blues. He's kind of on like a lease, I guess, to the Japanese club. But yeah, very, very interesting stuff. And finally, let's have a look at the results from the weekend. From this week, actually, not the weekend. So this week started with Australia versus France. Let's go through this quickly. This video is getting a bit too long. In the first match, France were able to kick a penalty in the dying minutes. One of the outstanding players was Cameron Wookie, who was just outstanding. Australia dominated the run meters with 679 over 319. More carries, more defenders beaten. And, despite having more opportunities, France still had more offloads. So it tells that Australia probably could throw the ball a little bit more. 12 turnovers conceded. France did really well. Only 5 conceded for the French team. Tackles made, 129. 15 missed tackles in the first game. Probably need to improve a little bit there. And then the French team, 224 tackles, 26 missed. Very good numbers there for the French. Very good defensive effort. Perfect kickings for both teams, and 3 line-out loss for the Aussies, especially in the second half. Really, really struggled against the French. 2 losses for the French team as well. And in the second half, the France dominated the scrum as well with Demba Bamba on the field. Really put a bit of a number on Alan Alatoa and Scott Seo, I think. But yeah, that was pretty painful. 12 penalties considered by both sides. Eventually, France were able to edge out a 2-point win over Australia in the dying minute. Pretty good game, this one. And this was on Tuesday last week. And then we had the Springbok A versus the British and Irish Lions. Springboks had a pretty decent start in the first half and dropped off a bit in the second half. And yeah, allowing the British and Irish Lions kind of like compile a lot of pressure. So overall, despite the fact that the Springboks won the game, the British and Irish Lions probably played a little bit better overall in terms of defense and in terms of composure. They did have one shocker pass, I think it was a pass, where the Springboks was able to basically recover from the mistake and score a try. But the second half, Springboks really fell apart a bit. 2 yellow cards, and also the British and Irish Lions was really obvious, trying not to reveal too much in this game. They had plenty of opportunities to keep 3 points penalties, and they just opted for the lineouts. And the Springboks, despite winning, the British and Irish Lions definitely was hiding a lot of their tricks up their sleeves. Run meters 228 for the Lions, for the Springboks 349 for the British and Irish Lions. 7 offloads to 1 for the Lions. 14 turnovers conceded against the Lions and 9 against the Springboks. In defense, 98 tackles made for the Lions, 7 missed tackles. That is very, very good. While the Springboks, 192 tackles made, 28 missed tackles. Slightly worse in percentage for the Lions, although they had to make more tackles. Overall, kicking has been perfect for the Lions. Owen Farrell was on the field in the last minute. The emerging Springboks had 1 penalty missed by Mone Stein. Bit of a difficult kick that one was. I think it was on an angle of 50 plus meters. And he also tried for a drop goal. I don't think, maybe, yeah, he also tried for a drop goal that he missed as well. So very far drop goal as well. Might have been someone else doing the drop goals. But anyway, there was a missed drop goal as well. Lineouts won. Lineouts lost 2 for the Lions. 2 for the Springboks. And 1 for the Lions. And the Springboks also, like I said, really struggled the scrums when Ox, Nish, and Nayake was on the field in the first half. So having them starting in the first test is a bit of a question mark, in my opinion. 15 penalties considered for the Lions and 12 for the 15 for the Springboks, 12 for the Lions, with 2 yellow cards at the dying minute of the first half, where Lions were really trying to score, but Springboks did well to hold on despite having 2 people in the bin. So that was kind of like a missed opportunity for the Lions. They probably were not really happy about that. Anyway, that was on Wednesday. More games to come on the weekend. And then we follow that up with Tonga versus Samoa. This is a World Cup qualifying match. Samoa were able to beat Tonga quite convincingly, I would say. So Samoa has qualified themselves into the Rugby World Cup, and Tonga still has an opportunity to qualify through the Asia region. But yeah, I did not watch this game, so these are the results. 15 points to 37. 2 tries for Tonga, 4 tries for Samoa. Kicking has been pretty good. A lot of penalty kicks for Tonga as well. Looks like there was being a little bit of discipline issue for Tonga, and we all know Tonga has a lot of selection issues, so really don't blame them for losing this match. And then we have the big one of the weekend, New Zealand versus Fiji. So this was a very clinical performance by New Zealand. Overall, slightly better than last week, and Fiji is slightly dropped off from last week. So it's very hard to tell whether it's because Fiji played a little bit worse or New Zealand just played a little bit better. But the scoreboard just showed that New Zealand were able to put on a little bit more points and were able to concede a little bit fewer points overall. I guess some of the key points out of this game is that the tackling defense was a little bit lacking for Fiji, especially in the second half. There was the first 30 minutes of the game where it looked like Fiji were out to make something happen. New Zealand had a really terrible first 30 minutes. Mistakes everywhere. They lost lineouts. I think they lost scrums. They lost just about, like, kickings were going out on the full. It was atrocious for the first 30 minutes for the All Blacks. Eventually things kind of clicked and got themselves back into the game. Yeah, 2 lineout loss for New Zealand. That is something that Fozzie will not be happy about. And I think they lost one of the scrums, but it was a penalty. It was a Fijian fee, so it doesn't show up here. 11 penalties considered, 14 for Fiji. Yeah, this was a better performance for New Zealand, but not something that Fozzie... I think there's still a lot of work for New Zealand to work with. And I think when it comes to Beauden Barrett, the kicking is pretty... This game really showed. Mo'unga kicking has been... I think he missed 1 kick out of 7. Yeah, 7. And Beauden Barrett missed 2 out of 3. So, kicking weren't very good. Vola at one point made a really nice break, almost scored. Barrett was like right next to him when he made the break, and he could not catch up. Well, and you took Damien McKenzie to come in from cutting from the side to actually catch up with Vola to make the tackle, saving the try just on the try line. So Beauden Barrett actually clearly were outpaced by Damien McKenzie as well. So it'll be a difficult... it'd be difficult to find a reason to have him in the squad, in the starting 15, and it'll be difficult to find him on the bench at the 22 jersey, to be fair. So Australia, second game of the week, final decider against France. Again, the game was looked pretty dire for Australia when Koroibete got red carded 4 minutes into the game, but Australia really put a number out, did really well to step up against the French. 3 tries apiece. Tupou scored a try. Lolosio made a break. McDermott also made a break. Both of these tries were nicely set up and really looking a bit dire when they scored, and it was kind of desperately needed to kind of stabilize. And French has 3 tries of their own. Kuyo 7 minutes, Wilkie 39 minutes, and Barassi at 46 minutes. Some stats, pretty even run meters, 278 to 309. 11 turnovers for Australia, 7 turnovers for France, against France, I guess, against the teams. Tackles, 67 tackles made for Australia, 11 missed tackles. Wanted to do better than that. But it's a little bit difficult when you have one player missing, I guess. Could be an excuse you're looking for. Was France, once again, world-class defense, 137 tackles, only 11 missed tackles. Almost double the amount of tackles and the same amount of missed tackles. That tells you how good the French defense is. And that's something that Wallabies really wants to get to in their own preparations. Turnovers 1, 4 turnovers, 1 for the Wallabies in defense, 6 for the French. Kicking, 1 missed kicking from each side. French had a drop goal. Jaminet had a drop goal attempt, but it was missed. It was really far away as well. He missed that one. And lineouts, 1 lineouts lost for Wallabies, 3 for the French. The Wallabies has done really well to spoil the lineouts there. Scrums, much better than last week. No lost scrums for the Wallabies this time after some shuffling with Tupou onto the bench. Whilst the second half, Tupou were really able to dominate the scrums coming off the bench and won the game for Australia, essentially. The final 3 points Australia kicked to win the game was a scrum penalty earned by Tupou. So this was massive for the Australians, and huge win. And Tupou, he's an absolute beast. Absolute amazing effort. Red card. And after the red card was given, Australia actually tidied up the penalties. This is probably the lowest penalty count for the 3 test series. I think this is. And France, 14 penalties considered. Pretty much what they've been getting the whole series, around that 10 to 14 point. So Australia has definitely improved in the discipline area. And the next game, this was a big one. Argentina versus Wales. Argentina finally, after a draw last week, following a red card as well, So the Argentina had to play with red card last week, ended up with a draw against Wales, B team, maybe C team, because most of the Welsh players are in the Lions tour. This week came out, Argentina really executed much better than last week. They had a very clear game plan that they're practicing, with Sanchez kicking with every opportunity for 3 points. And the Argentina was pretty close, edging away until the last about 10 minutes or so, where they really started to pull away, with Materia scoring a final try on the 78th minute to seal off the game. Overall, the stats are pretty similar. 13 turnovers conceded for the Argentina, 19 for Welsh, and 9 missed tackles for Argentina. That's very, very good, something that's part of their strategy. 13 missed tackles out of 140 for Wales, also excellent. Kicks in play, Sanchez missed 2 conversions, much better than his previous 2 weeks, where he missed a lot more and with much fewer kicks as well. So Sanchez really improved on his kicking, whereas Wales missed 1 of the conversions. There was 1 drop goal attempt by Sanchez. He just missed that one. And finally, the set pieces has been pretty good for the Argentinians. And for the Wales team, there's 1 line-out lost. Very good discipline for Argentina, 7 and 13 for Wales with a yellow card. So, Argentina were able to put on a much more clinical performance over to the Welsh team to close out this, test series, 2-game test series. And finally, the last game of the weekend, second last game of the weekend, Stormers got completely dominated by the British and Irish Lions. To be fair, the Stormers were in the game for about 20 minutes before the British and Irish Lions really started to pull away. Marcus Smith played extremely well after being caught up. Perfect conversions and setting up a number of these tries that are really instrumental in linking up with his players, finding the space, and it's just, very world class. Considering this is only like his 3rd test match ever, or this is probably the one considers test match, but this is like the first Lions test he's played, and he only played 2 tests before this for England. Let's have a look at some of the stats. Lions completely dominated Stormers in run meters. Turnovers conceded 15, something that Lions probably wanted to fix that. 20 turnovers conceded for the Stormers. Lions 15 missed tackles out of 121. A little bit below the average, but it's not too bad. 126 tackles for the Stormers, 36 missed tackles. That is quite high. 6 turnovers, 1 for the Stormers, 10 for the Lions. Much better play there. Perfect kicking for the Lions, 7 out of 7. 1 for the Stormers. And the breakdowns, pretty even for both teams, I would say. And finally, the lineouts. There's 1 lineout loss for the Lions, 3 for the Stormers. So the Lions did pretty well there. Scrums, 1 loss for the Stormers and 1 loss for the Lions. So not the perfect scrummaging, especially against a Stormers team that is quite underpowered. And finally, penalties conceded. The Lions really should improve their discipline there. 13 penalties conceded to the Stormers 12. Okay, that is a really long news. A lot of stuff happened this week. Anyway, thank you for watching this video, guys. Hopefully you'll go have a look at my top 10 list for a bit of a laugh. And I'll see you guys a little bit later this week. Hopefully in the next few hours, the Lions team will be announced, and I'll do a team lineup comparison between the Springboks and the Lions. And thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you guys soon.